Chris here with a video that a lot of people actually did want to see. So, the Xiaomi Pad 5 global version versus the top spec Chinese import model here that I got. I bought this one. This has, of course, 5G support and it's called the Pad 5 Pro 5G. Is it more than just a faster chipset and 2 GB more RAM? Well, as you see in this comparison, it offers quite a lot more than you would think. The Pad 5 Pro version, but is it the one you should go for? So our screens on these models are exactly the same. It's an 11-inch IPS fully laminated and the resolution is 2560 by 1600. Both of them, the ROM performance UI is really exactly the same. I can't tell too much of a difference. Although we do have, of course, Snapdragon 870 on the Pro models versus the 860. There is a difference and I'll get into that with synthetic benchmark soon. So right up the front here is an 8 megapixel camera on both versions. They have the metal frame around the outside. And the big key difference is this right here. So the rear camera on the Pro 5G model here, 50 megapixels. That's not the big difference. The big one for me is the focus on this camera is so much better than the global Pad 5 version, which tends to focus hunt in video. This one does not. So it is plastic on the rear. This is all exactly the same. And the black version here does pick up a lot of fingerprints compared to the white one. So if possible, I would get the white version. It just looks so much better. And of course, the Pro model here, 5G model, has the SIM tray there. Now, it just takes a single nano SIM. There's a rubber gasket around it for a little bit of dust and splash protection. And you might actually get lucky with this one and be able to pick up 5G in your own country, depending on the frequency band support of your carrier. It does not, unfortunately, have LTE band 20 for me, which I do need, but I might be able to get onto 5G, but it has been a little bit patchy for me. Pogo port pin connector for that keyboard, of course. Type cover style keyboard, and it just has the single position with this one. Now, I've used it quite a bit now. This is a very nice keyboard, and I don't really have any complaints about it at all. It works with both Pro and, of course, non-Pro models. The tablet simply just slots in like that. The back here is magnetic, and that's the fixed angle we then do have with this. Now, there's a big difference in the ROM. So on the left here, that's the Pad 5. We've got then the Pad 5 Pro 5G, and we've got a Chinese ROM. So in English and Chinese, this has all your Android, all your European languages on there with that one, or your Asian languages. It's pretty much covered at what you'd get with Android 11. Both run MIUI 12.5, both Android 11. The speed of the ROMs, just general kind of multitasking, until you do really heavy multitasking, they both feel exactly the same between these. It's just when I have, say, for example, a game running in the background, the Pro version with the 2 GB more RAM and the more powerful processor does then start to feel a little bit faster. So ROM-wise, when you get them, you're going to have a little bit of, well, actually quite a lot of Chinese bloatware on the Pro version that you need to uninstall and clean up. So you do need a bit of time for that. And there's a few bloaty apps on the Pad 5, but they've toned down on it. It's actually getting quite a bit better. This is one of the big differences between both of these models here, that although on the Pad 5 Pro here, we do have a Widevine Level 1 cert with the Pro models and also with the global, when you actually end up loading up Netflix, everything is in standard definition with the Chinese model, but the global Netflix is full HD at least, which is good. And you'll see that right now when I go over to Netflix here. You can see here, standard definition playback versus full HD, HDR10 support, Dolby Vision support, and then the Chinese model doesn't support either of those. That's a big difference there and quite a crucial one to a lot of people that watch Netflix. Amazon Prime Video on both of these models here runs in standard definition only. Internal storage speeds, well, there is a noticeable difference here. We are looking at 128 gigabytes versus 256. Not entirely fair because of the increased storage capacity means it would actually always be faster. Normally that is. So you can see a huge difference in the random reads and writes there between the Pro model. But of course you can get the Pad 5 with the 256 gigabytes of storage. Both are UFS 3.1 spec. So if you did get the 256 gigabyte one, expect speeds that would be similar to this one, perhaps actually a little bit lower due to the slightly slower chipset. Another huge one is that the Pad Pro version and the Pro 5G have GPS, okay, with the Snapdragon 870, but with the 860 we do not get hardware GPS support. We have the compass, they've both got gyros in them, So if you need the GPS, this is the one to get, and it does work really well. And 2-2 scores here. So as expected, a big difference between the 870 versus the 860. So if you are a gamer, you're going to game a lot. There's no point in me showing any games because they do feel and look a little bit better, well, overall with the more average, better, smoother frame rate on the Pad 5 Pro and the Pad 5 Pro 5G. You can see the difference here with our Geekbench 5 scores quite a bit in terms of the CPU performance. They're pulling ahead the 870 with quite a nice lead there. And our charge time, so clearly a big difference. We're looking at 67 watts, charges in 55 minutes versus 22.5 watts, the included charger, and that one took 75 minutes. Note that with these Pro models here out of China, you do not get the charger. It's not included in the box. You have to buy it separately. Then the battery life, not quite as expected. So this one has a smaller capacity battery, but it's not by much. It's 8,400 milliamp hours versus 8,720 milliamp hours. Really nothing, but this one pulled ahead, okay? Same exact brightness at 200 nits, same exact looped test doing the same thing, and I managed to get 14 hours, 17 minutes versus 12 hours right here, and that's at 120 hertz. The odd thing is, if you put the Pad 5 onto 60 hertz, it will then be able to achieve the 14 hours. So it just goes to show you that the Snapdragon 870 does seem to be a more efficient chipset. Now, there is a huge difference when it comes to the wireless speeds. Wi-Fi 6 support on the Pad 5 Pro and the Pro 5G versions, and then the Pad 5 is just Wi-Fi 5 spec. So that's Wi-Fi AC versus AX. That is why this is able to get gigabit speeds connected up to my router. Very, very good lower score here away from the router. It's got impressive range reception and overall speeds. The Pad 5 Pro can also pair up and use two networks at once. So 2.4 gigahertz, and that's Wi-Fi N, and then Wi-Fi 6 at the same time to really help improve the performance. And remember, depending on your carrying area, you see this at the top here, we've got mobile data with this, but again, it's the Chinese bands. So if you wanted the fastest Wi-Fi, this one absolutely kills the speeds of the Pad 5. Now, another trick that the Pad 5 Pro has is this, a fingerprint reader. Look, simply place my finger on the power button and it unlocks. And the global Pad 5 version does not have this feature. It has face unlocking like this Model 2, of course, and it works all right, but I do like having that added fingerprint scanner. And this is where we're supposed to have a big difference. So with the Pad 5, we've got 4 speakers, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. And then with the Pad 5 Pro 5G version here, we have 8 speakers in total. So what I'll do is I'll play the Pad 5 first, followed by the Pro model. See if you can hear a difference. All right, I don't think there's that much of a difference to warrant getting one over the other for the speakers right here, but it is an added little perk if you did go for the Pro 5G model to have marginally better bass out of the speakers and mids. And then, of course, pricing, a big difference. The global model, the Pad 5, will be selling for $299, the early bird price, and then it goes up to $349, I think it is, for the 128 gigabyte version. So with this one, we get 256 gigabytes, and the price is 450 euros upwards for this spec here, okay, which is the Pro 5G model. So we do have with the global model, all of your Android languages. This Chinese ROM only has, of course, English and Chinese. The big one for me and a lot of people is Netflix support is on the global model. Full HD support, Dolby Vision, HDR, that's what we get with this one. Standard definition only, no Dolby Vision, no HDR, with the Chinese ROM version here, well, the Chinese import model. So that's a big shame. And both of them, Amazon Prime Video in standard definition until they whitelist these devices and add them as supported tablets, which I hope will happen later on in the year. So the Pad 5 Pro gets a lot of extra things. It's more than just the chipset. So yes, we get the faster chipset, 2 GB more RAM, double the storage. Well, you can also get 256 with this one. GPS support, fingerprint reader, 8 speakers, 50 megapixel camera with better autofocus. So that's quite a bit. And then of course the obvious 5G support, but do check with your carrier if the Chinese bands, some of them will be supported here in Europe, will actually work out fine for you. So there we go, a lot of differences there. Now if you're interested in either of these models, there are links down in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Do check out my full review of the Pad 5 and the Pad 5 Pro, which can be found in my channel.